you are a kid that grew up in the 80s and 90s, then chances are you are a big fan of side-scrolling platformers. Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to the show. So today, I want to take a look at one of my favorite genres in retro gaming, and maybe all of gaming. And even though today you see less and less of it, which is side-scrolling platformers, the indie game scene seems to be bringing it back in a huge way. But I want to roll the clocks back just a little bit, and I want to take a look and talk about 4 games from the 16-bit era that I thought were kind of cool. First up on our list is the game Bob, which is short for Bob. And actually, it is also known in Japan as Space Funky Bob. Okay? Well, anyway, this is a side-scrolling platformer that came out on both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. I don't believe that I've ever played it on the Sega Genesis, and so this is obviously on the Super Nintendo. And I never hear this game mentioned that much, and I picked it up when I started collecting, and it's a great little game. I mean, there's not much to it. You're a robot, and you have different moves. You can pick up different types of shot for your laser gun. You know, it's like spread and just a regular laser. It's almost like a more cartoony version of Mega Man. Now, I'm not going to say that this is as good as Mega Man, but it's still a fun game. It falls into one of those above average 16-bit side-scrolling platformers. And the actual plot of the game is Bob crashes his dad's space car on the way to pick up his date, and he finds himself stranded on a hostile asteroid filled with enemies. And basically, you just go through every level trying to avoid these enemies by shooting them and using different items along the way to get over spikes and I don't know, chasms, what have you. And that's pretty much it. Not too much to it, but you know what? Sometimes less is more. So during the 16-bit era, a lot of companies who had mascots to sell their product would also come out with platformers to put on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, and this is one of them. But the thing of it is a lot of these games weren't too bad, and Cool Spot is one of the games that I always remember as being pretty cool. And yes, I know, it's pretty much just a big old advertisement for 7-Up. But it's still cool. I remember Spot in all the commercials, and I always loved it. Didn't make me want to drink 7-Up even more, but I still thought it was cool. And this is another platformer that came out on multiple systems. Actually, it came out on the Genesis, the Master System, Game Gear, Amiga, Super NES, Game Boy, and DOS. I don't know if they're all talking about the same one, because I looked that up on Wikipedia and that's what it said. I don't know if it really came out on all those systems. That kind of sounds like some of those systems were older when this game came out, but whatever. That's what it said. It's a great platformer. There's nothing much to it. The mechanics of it are really good. Controls are nice on this. They're not slippery or laggy at all. And the graphics are really cool. And this is one of those games that really shows something about the 90s, how these games were. You know, the attitude that they gave all of these characters and platformers. And we all know that, you know, the one thing that you always do is you would leave the character stand there for a while and see what he would do when you didn't have a move for a while, whether or not they would whistle or like tap their watch or whatever. I always loved that. And there's other games that we're going to be looking at here that are kind of the same way. Totally 90s, totally awesome. Cool Spot. Well, what can I say about this next game? It's disgusting and obscene, and I absolutely love it. This is definitely a 90s game right here. The art style of it, it almost reminds me, some of the bad guys on this, is if you ever watched the real Ghostbusters cartoon, a lot of the ghosts, the art style on that show looks like the bad guys on here. And this version is the one that came on the Sega Genesis, and there is a Super Nintendo one, but Boogerman. And it's not just Boogerman, it's Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. That is awesome. And if you've never played this game before, pick it up, because you are going to be like, oh my god. And this is perfect for, if you have a younger kid. I know my little boy, all of a sudden one year, it was just, everything was about farts and burping and pooping, and I don't know what happened, but that was the thing. And this game is all about that. And it's over the top, and it doesn't take itself seriously at all. Great game, great graphics, great sound, and actually I want to say that this might be an earlier game, but I could be wrong. And I played this game on both Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo, and they're exactly the same game. They both look great, they sound great, and there's not much more I can say about it other than you defeat your enemies by either burping on them, or farting on them, or picking your nose and flicking boogers at them. Yep, that's what it is. And after that, I don't really know what more there is to say about it, but it's Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. Kid Chameleon is an early platformer on the Sega Genesis, and to me, it's one of the classics on that system. If you have a Sega Genesis, you have to have certain games. Sonic being one of them, and probably somewhere along the lines, I would say, Kid Chameleon. Is it the best platformer ever? No, but it is a solid game, and it's just a cool game overall. They're not doing anything special or great here, but everything is solid and neat. The graphics are pretty good, the sound's decent, and you are a kid that goes into a virtual video game room, almost like the holodeck on Star Trek, right? And as you're in there, you play along in this game, and there's more to it, but you play along each level, and there's different helmets that you put on, and you become like different characters, and with each of those characters, they have special abilities. They help you get along in each level. And I think there's like a samurai mask, and there's a knight mask, and there's even like a Jason mask that you put on, and that is so cool. And you throw axes with it. The graphics and the sound are so much early Genesis, which a lot of people kind of frown on that a little bit, at least in my experience, but that's just adds to it. I love it. It was the early 16-bit. Genesis was still trying to figure itself out, and this was one of those early games, and it was one of the good games. So I'm willing to bet you that these games don't go for too much, so if you get a chance, you ever see one, pick it up. Okay, so this was only 4 games out of a whole genre of great games. And this is a segment that I really hope to keep going in the future, because I could spend days and days talking about my different favorite platforming games through all the different consoles. And all of them have it. I mean, yeah, when you got into the PlayStation and N64, the platforming wasn't your traditional side-scrolling because everything was going 3D. But as that has turned into the newer consoles and the 3D has become more mainstream, people have yearned to go back to something more retro, and that's why I think we've seen a return to seeing more side-scrolling platformers. But that being said, I think that just about does it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Until I see you again, bye-bye.